Good evening, good evening. Happy Thursday. Aisha here, founder CEO of the Sisters in Business Expo. We are the country's only multi-city small business expo created to celebrate entrepreneur women of color. And we are so excited to have you with us for tonight's Founders Chat. Our special guest is already on. We're going to bring her on in just a second. I am so excited for you all to meet and hear from none other than Natalie Cofield, who is an amazing sister in business, who is doing some phenomenal work for women of color. And you're really going to love her if you don't already know her. But she is so awesome. So go ahead and click like, click share, send us some hearts, send them some love. We all need some love right now because this is the Rona season, but it's gonna pass. I feel it in my spirit that it's gonna be on its way soon. Hey Bubble Babes, hey BK Keisha, hey Asala. So we're gonna go ahead and bring her on. So go ahead and click share. Tell your folks that Sisters in Business is live with another Founders Chat that they don't want to miss. Okay. And we are going to bring on our guests. Hey, Refresh and Flourish. I miss y'all so much. I cannot wait to see y'all in live, in living color. Hey, girl.
Hello. Thank you for having
How are
me.
you?
I'm good.
Good. Girl, we trying to in these streets trying to survive the Rona.
Okay.
But I'm so excited to have you with us tonight. So we're gonna jump in it because I know it's gonna be a great conversation and we have a lot to talk about. So again, welcome to those who are just joining us. I am Aisha Taylor-Easter, founder and CEO of the Sisters in Business Expo. We are the country's only multi-city small business expo created specifically to celebrate, educate, and empower entrepreneur women of color. And tonight we are chatting with none other than Natalie M. Cofield, who is the founder and CEO of Walker's Legacy. And so if you have not heard of Walker's Legacy, we're not going to hold it against you, but after tonight, you're going to know all about it. And you're going to connect with this amazing platform, which is in its 10th year, celebrating 10 years. Shout out to you all, because that is amazing, you know, in this climate for anything to last 10 years, whether it's a relationship or a business is amazing. So we are so excited to have you with us. And as I always say, the best way to introduce someone is to let them introduce themselves. So please tell everyone who you are, and what you do.
Yeah. So first off, I'm excited that we're doing this. Thank you so much for asking me to be online with you. This is an exciting time. I think we're seeing so much innovation happening around how people are connecting. And it's funny because we've been trying to connect for a while, and here it is. The Rona has made us kind of put us in a place where that was possible in a way that amplifies our desire to connect with each other. So I want to honor you for that.
Yes.
So as was mentioned, my name is Natalie Cofield. I have the honor of being the founder of Walker's Legacy. Walker's Legacy is a national organization designed to empower multicultural women in business. So we do conferences, summits, master classes, original content focused on highlighting, supporting, encouraging, educating, and inspiring multicultural women in business. We're proud to say that we have chapters in 15 cities across the country right now, which is super great. And we also do a lot of research. So we actually have a forthcoming COVID research study that we're going to be releasing on the impacts that it's had on specifically our businesses as women of color, the fastest growing entrepreneurial segment in the country.
Yes.
But beyond that, I think,
but the least earning.
Oh, okay. But you know how we do. So during COVID, what's
yes,
going to happen?
We create our own.
Okay. So we're going to see even more growth of women-owned businesses, women of color-owned businesses during this time. Undoubtedly, that's how I feel about it. But I mean, my background has really been in this intersection of government, nonprofits, and social enterprise. But I've always had a focus on entrepreneurship and economic opportunity within communities of color. And being a woman, obviously, what happens to us, how it affects us, how it impacts us has always been very near and dear to me. So Walker's Legacy was really birthed out of my own need at that time when I was starting my first company when I was 26, which was 2 weeks ago.
Right, of course. So I think I saw an HU comment. Are you a Howard University grad?
I am a Howard alum. Proud vice.
All right. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about Natalie pre, this experience in terms of, where you from, where you grew up, where you went to school. Just tell them a little bit of personal tidbits about you.
Yeah. So I grew up in Rochester, New York. Shout out to the Rock. Okay. Yeah.
You can't really claim New York, but I'm gonna let you on in there. It's close.
Well, it's funny that you say that because
I'm from Brooklyn, right? I'm from Brooklyn.
Oh, that's right. So it's funny that you say that because I was just about to follow that by saying that we get no respect from New Yorkers. And it's funny because I've lived a lot of places, and New York is the only place that you can't rep your state name. Like when I lived in Texas, I used to be like, yeah, I live in Texas. And then New York, and people are like, oh, great. And it didn't matter if you lived in like Prairie View or if you lived in Houston. New York.
Right. You can still be Texas.
New York, you better be talking
You know where you're from, right? You know where you're from, right? Upstate. You're from upstate.
I'm from Western New York.
Or Westchester County.
So I jokingly tell people that I am from East Ohio and South Canada because that's for people to get. Okay, and I can get love off of that one. But no, I grew up in Rochester.
Right.
I grew up in a household where my mom was executive at a Black Enterprise 100 company, and I would read her business plans all the time. My father was a professor and an administrator in school, and he was focused on entrepreneurship, particularly digital entrepreneurship. And so I always say to people kind of like I got it through my genes, and I kind of earned it through that experience. And I was always very much so exposed to the impact that entrepreneurship has on underrepresented communities. I went to Howard when I was 16 years old, and so now when I
went to college at 16 too.
Oh, look at that!
Look at us. I did. Yep. So University of South Carolina. Go Gamecocks.
Okay. So
yes, which is where I met Joteka.
Okay. All right. Yes.
We went to undergrad together.
Okay. She is queen of the Gamecocks. It's Gamecocks, right?
Gamecocks. Yeah.
So went to college when I was 16. Went to Howard. Best decision I've ever made in my life. I look at 16-year-old, and that was like 10 years ago. So
of course, right.
I look at 16-year-olds now, and I'm like, oh my God, I was like a baby going to school. But I majored in information systems and did tech. Okay. So I was coding. I was always in school engineering. I was always coding, which is something a lot of people don't know about me. That I
and I was gonna say that even 10 years ago, that was still very ahead of its time.
Oh yeah. So my dad,
I can imagine that there weren't many women of color in your major.
Oh no, there weren't.
At Howard, I mean, you were at Howard, but still, across the board.
Oh, absolutely. No. So even in the space at Howard, there were still more men in the field than there were women. How that came about was that my dad actually worked at Rochester Institute of Technology at that time. And he was like, management of what, Natalie? You need to learn how to manage information systems and computers and technology. So I actually changed my major after my freshman year to a computer operation-based information systems. And I used to code Linux and Unix, and I used to do HTML.
Well, we got a question. What language? I assume he's asking about what coding language.
Yes, that's how I answered that. C++.
I was like, I don't know.
Right, I'm dating myself now, but it would be C++, stuff like that. So,
right.
Yeah, obviously HTML. But I was actually the president of the Koban Society at Howard.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's a little known fact about me.
That's dope though. That's a dope fact, right? Because I mean, there's been more, a progression around it now about women and women of color getting into tech and in coding. But 10 years, 20 years ago, you were not, it was not something that a lot of people talked about or that was even made available to us. So that was even considered as a possibility.
No,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. I did 7 internships when I was in college. And I was working at a lot of tech companies like oh God, I worked with the chief information officer at a company that was acquired by GE Capital. I can't even remember what the name of this tech company that I worked. I used to drive an hour every day from Howard to go work with them, and I was helping them build websites and stuff like that. So, you know, we're not new to this. We're true to this.
True to this, right?
Say. But yeah.
So then what? Where did you go after Howard?
So after Howard, I actually went to go work on Wall Street. So all that tech experience, I was like, you know, I really like people and I want to interact with people and I want to learn more about the business side of things. So I went to work as a management consulting analyst at JP Morgan Chase. And I worked, so I worked in New York and I worked in different divisions.
In the real New York.
Oh, yes, I was in the other part of New York. The other part.
You were in there, girl.
Yeah, I'm from the real part of New York. Okay. You gonna stop bragging on my city.
Girl, you know we can't help ourselves. We cannot help ourselves. Meanwhile, I'm over here living in Jersey. So what it is what it is.
Right. Okay. Still claiming it. Right.
You know we hardly humble, always repping.
Always repping. So
always repping.
So then I worked there, and then I actually did a program called the National Urban Fellows Program in New York.
I'm familiar. Yeah.
So I did that program and I ended up moving to LA and I did economic policy under LA. Now, kind of stopping right here, one thing that made me super proud this year is I graduated from that program and I was one of the youngest people who had gone through it at the time. And this year I was the keynote speaker for the 50th anniversary of the National Urban Fellows. And we also, the first time that a founder, like a entrepreneurial organization that was led by a founder who graduated from the program, actually also had a fellow. So I had a fellow this year, and she is now finishing her 9-month residency with us on May 15th and graduating from Georgetown. So, that's
full circle,
a full circle moment for me. I'm always proud when I can make opportunities like that happen. So, and I lived in LA, and then I came back to DC, and I got a really cross-country, varied professional experience. I mean, I was chamber CEO at 29 for 5.5 years for a top 50. I was actually the youngest person who was the chamber president for a top 15 city in the country. And I was the youngest Black chamber president for a top 15 city in the nation when I took over the Greater Austin Black Chamber of Commerce. So I'll stop there.
Okay. So all of that somehow led you to Walker's Legacy.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how this beautiful organism came to be. What was the vision behind it? And how did it really, really take off?
Yeah, so I actually started Walker's Legacy, as I mentioned, when I started my first company. So I, at that time, was working for a company in DC. It was an organization called the Washington, DC Economic Partnership. And I was teaching entrepreneurship, doing shows on entrepreneurship. And I just got the entrepreneurial bug. So I decided that I was going to leave and start my own consulting practice called NMC Consulting Group. And in doing that, what I recognized was a couple of things. One, the issue of me being a woman and the issue of me being young followed me through that experience. But this time I didn't have a structure around me. I had no big name to lean back on. I couldn't be like, oh, I work at JP Morgan Chase, not take me seriously. Or, oh, I'm the director of this, not take me seriously. And I realized that I didn't have a female mentor. And so I decided to establish an initiative, it was really just a gathering of women to come together to be a support group to each other and to me. And that was the birth of Walker's Legacy 10 years ago at the Charles Sumner School in Washington, D.C. And since that time, I mean, it's incredible that it's been 10 years and we've continued to keep going. Like, I've seen a lot of things come and a lot of stuff go. And I've even myself wondered, man, am I going to be able to do this again next year? And so I've gone through all of the highs and lows of entrepreneurship. I had a business while I was still the president and CEO of the Greater Austin Black Chamber of Commerce. So I was still doing Walker's Legacy. And I know we'll kind of talk a little bit about what it took for me to step out to do it again full time. But I've been in all those different kind of capacities and spaces.
How did you settle on Madam C.J. Walker and that name being the catapult for the brand?
I was researching women whose story I really respected and who resonated with me, like a story of perseverance, things of that nature. And so, Madam Walker's story came up a lot for me, but it was always like framed in the context of like her as a beautician, which is important. And I don't want to diminish that by any extent of the imagination. But I also felt that there was not enough conversation about her role as a significant business leader and as a mogul and as a global entrepreneur who is doing business in countries around the world, particularly the Caribbean. And so Walker's legacy actually came about because I felt like at that time, the legacy that I was reading about was really about kind of dispelling the myth of whether she created the pressing comb or not, and not talking about her as the first self-made female millionaire in U.S. history. Again, not thinking about that in the context of race, but just the first self-made female millionaire in U.S. history. Put a pause on it, But also, but thinking about all the business structures and things that she had to create in order for her to be successful in doing this. And even more than that, her true commitment to empowering women along the way, which really came across in that Netflix movie. So, I mean, whether you liked the fact that they had men who had umbrellas that were turning purple, I don't know what that was about.
Yeah,
we can have a whole other conversation.
It was some stuff. But yeah,
I was like, why is this a boxing ring? But okay,
right, yeah, they definitely took some creative license. But I think at the core of the story was there. What did you have any knowledge, or had you done any research on this issue with Addie Malone and how that whole issue?
So I will say, because I can only speak for myself, but I speak for myself, understanding and knowing some other stuff. Yes, Addie Malone was a lighter skinned woman than Madam C.J. Walker, but she was not as fair skinned as what people have projected her to be in the movie. I personally feel like, and I've heard various conversations on it, like, oh, this is a great way to further introduce conversations about the challenge of colorism, which is real, is true, affects lives on a daily basis. So let that be known that that's how I feel. But I also feel like for the significance of what Madam C.J. Walker had accomplished and done, for that to kind of be the resounding impact of her legacy and the real emphasis of conversations that were being had after that movie, that Netflix came out, I just found it to be so incredibly disappointing and a complete disservice. Yes, there was a competitive tension that existed between the two women. Yes, Madam Walker worked for her, but there were a lot of liberties that were taken around sensationalizing the dynamic between these two women, the relationships that they didn't have. And I just felt like, why did this turn into another bashing moment? Right.
It's like, we can't win for losing, as my mother would say. We're trying to get ahead. We're trying to celebrate and encourage, and now it's this, right?
Exactly. It's just kind of like, here you have this moment where you can, honestly, for me, I felt like this should have been like The Crown. Like, why wasn't it done? Like, there was no need to have a hip hop opera in the background. Like, none of that. Like, I was fine with seeing stage coaches and hearing the music of the time and keeping it
just tell a story
100% with what it was, because we need to really see it for where it was to get the power of what it was. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And how far ahead of her time she was.
Absolutely.
Like,
and I think I feel like it came out, but it didn't come out at the level that I just, that I felt like, man, But here are a couple of things that I think people should really take note to. Number one, so now that we've kind of gone through that Annie Malone situation, first off, why do you need to change the woman's name? Like, don't disrespect her. Like, her name is Annie Malone. Like, let's do that. We're not going to have a movie about Martin Luther King and call Malcolm X Martin X. We're not going to do that to it. You know what I mean? We're going to keep it historically accurate and relevant, and like, we're going to keep it moving. So, but the truth is that Madam Walker did have chapters of women. She had almost 20,000 women that worked for her across the country. She had these women in chapters across the nation, and they would have meetings. And the meetings that they were holding, there was a time where I saw a photo and I got chills, because the meetings that they were having looked just like the types of events and meetings that Walker's Legacy has been having in communities across the country. Because we've really been focused on having smaller, more intimate experiences for women. And sometimes like at the expense of being like a really significant, 1,000-person event every time we go somewhere. And there's room, importance, and space for all of that, right? She also had a big national conference at her mansion, next to the Rockefellers. Now they got that part right. That was focused on empowering women in business. It was not just about them kind of picketing the fact that she was going to be basically, selling her products out of the CVS of that time, right? It wasn't that. It was more about teaching them their business skills. And that's exactly what Walker's Legacy does and has been doing. And the last thing I'm going to take privilege to say, and I know you like Natalie, let me get on to my next question.
Thank you, sis.
Is we created the Walker's Legacy Foundation, which is, we have two organizations, Walker's Legacy and our foundation. And we started with this program called Moms Who Enterprise. It used to be called Moms Who Hustle. And it was really designed for low-income single mothers because, again, in keeping with Madam Walker, we don't have to go too far from her legacy. She was a single mom who was washing floors for $1 a week. And we were like, we need to do a program to support single mothers. And so I'm excited to say we've graduated more than 150 women in 6 cities across the country through that program. We've awarded $5,000 in microgrants to them. We're about to bring on 40 single moms in Rochester and in DC. I had to bring it to my home team, take it home, bring it there. But that type of program is like somebody in that cohort is the next Madam CJ Walker. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. Oh, I just got chills. Do it, sis. Do it. Do it. Yes, we have to, and it's important that we let people know, how important and serious we are about this work. Because we need more of it, and it's just so powerful. So, Dad, you done got me all messed up. Okay. So So before we get to the entrepreneur piece, I wanted to ask you about how did you settle? Because we have a very varied audience. Most of them are, of course, in business, but we do have a good constituency that is in the nonprofit arena, that is interested or have already started nonprofits or are looking to see how they can, build successful nonprofits. How did you settle on creating a nonprofit as a for this work? And what has that experience been like as opposed to your business? What challenges have been unique to the nonprofit world that might help somebody out?
Yeah, so I'll tell people a couple of things. Number one, starting a nonprofit is very similar to so there are different types of business structures. So you can start a sole proprietorship. You can just, not incorporate formally at all. You can do an LLC, a C Corp, a partnership, an S Corp, all that. When you get in the C and the S Corp space, it's a lot more paperwork, a lot more reporting, all of that. Starting a C Corp is very similar to starting a nonprofit organization. You have to have a board. You have to have board meetings. You have to do all of those types of things. And the reporting and the paperwork around that can be a lot, especially for the reporting, accounting, and paperwork on that can be a lot for an organization that doesn't have a lot of financial resources. And so what I advise people to do is there's a thing called almost like incubating your nonprofit. And you can incubate your nonprofit within the context of a larger organization. So that's actually what we've done through our foundation. So Walker's Legacy Foundation is actually incubated through the Washington Regional Association of Grantmakers. And they're our fiscal manager. And what does that mean? It means that they manage all of our accounting, all of the operational components of our nonprofit arm. And that helps us on the business side because it keeps the two entities extremely separated, right? Because if you have a for-profit and a nonprofit and you're kind of leading both of those efforts without a sense of checks and balances on either side, it can be easy to potentially commingle funds. It can be easy to not potentially submit the reports, do the audits, all that kind of stuff that you need to do, particularly on the nonprofit arm side. And a lot of larger funders are oftentimes looking for you to have managed larger sums of money. So when you first start off on a nonprofit, you might be, jumping off the roof if you get a $5,000 sponsorship, a $10,000 sponsorship. And there's a lot of paperwork that can go into you getting that, right? You're given a lot of information for that. It's almost like getting certified for your business every single time you go out there submitting a grant. But when you have that type of fiscal sponsor or fiscal manager, and it's fiscal sponsor is what they call it, but I'm going to call it fiscal manager just because sponsor sounds like they're giving us money, and they're not. They don't give us any money. We actually pay them to do all of the operational work for our nonprofit arm, and we sit underneath their organization. So we have access to all of their employee benefits. So if we hire someone on the foundation side, they get all the same things that to look into what it would be like for them to have a fiscal manager for their nonprofit effort. And to me, that is actually and you can stay there forever, or you can grow yourself out of that, right? So if you grow yourself out of that, that means that you have raised enough money for the organization, and then you can hire an operations person, just all these critical and key roles and functions that you need to have to ensure you're in compliance with stuff. And so that's how we've really grown on the nonprofit side. And we've been very honored to have funders like W.K. Kellogg Foundation, which is, these are the Ivy Leagues of foundations, you know what I mean? Citibank, HSBC, who've written checks to Walker's Legacy Foundation to do work to support our work around that MOMS program. On the for-profit side, we have a model that's probably very similar to yours, which is, we are working with corporate partnerships. We work through events, we work through content, and all of that kind of stuff, sponsorship, very similar to what a media platform would do, and do contracts in that way.
Good stuff. That's really good. We actually just late last year got our 501c3 for our nonprofit entity. So we are doing just that. The for-profit side and the Sistahs and Business Foundation, which we ain't even really announced formally yet. So now y'all know. Surprise. So let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned it briefly, that sort of transition from juggling a full-time job and leading your own endeavor, and then transitioning full-time into entrepreneurship is something people ask about a lot, that people desire and feel like they can't really figure out when or how it'll ever happen for them. What was that process like for you, and what advice would you give to those who are interested in making that transition?
Okay, I'm going to approach this from two perspectives. I'm going to try to give two quick answers on both perspectives. I'm going to approach it from the perspective of a employee. And there's someone who's working for someone else. I would definitely, you are saving. Like, I mean, if not more than ever, like, you didn't need the bag, right? I always tell people the story about when I first started. I had all these Gucci bags and I sold them. I put them on eBay and was like, actually, I need that money to reinvest in my company. So I can't be walking around here with a Gucci bag unless I can actually put some Gucci money in the bag. You understood?
I know that's right.
Yes. So, those are the type of sacrifices that you have to make. And I think actually right now is a good moment for people to take a step back and pause and say, like, what am I actually spending my money on as it relates to just frivolous things that are not necessarily necessary, and to start like your dream fund, right? So start putting money aside for things that you actually really want to do. To me, that's like the first step in how you do this, because even when you have a business, you still need to learn to save money. Okay. So like, just because you made money doesn't mean all of it's got to go out the door, right? So it's a blessed place to be in. When you are talking to your accountant, it's like, okay, we got to figure out like how we can, strategize around this end of year closeout. That's a blessed place to be, but it takes a while sometimes to get to that point. So saving your money, if you can do something 100, you could do a great job of managing 1,000. If you can manage 1,000, you can manage 10. If you can manage 10, you can manage 100,000. Like, it doesn't change, right? So be very mindful of that on your personal side. And then also start networking in the space that you're interested in doing business with, right? So don't just leap out on faith and just jump out there like, oh, this is about to be the best thing since sliced bread. Like, you will inevitably have a moment where you fall on the sword around that, right? But those are also moments where you got to be like, I got to pick back up. Like, any entrepreneur that tells you that they've never been broke is lying to you, or they come from a serious place of privilege, which is totally fine, but not all of us come from that place. And so if someone can't be honest with you and say, listen, you need to be prepared to possibly be broke for a moment, and you can't, and if you can't be okay with that, then this probably isn't the game for you, because it's going to happen. Okay. And it could still be happening to you even when you feel like you're about to peak at something. Like you could be 5 years into it and still have a moment where you might fall broke. And it could be for anything from COVID to, it could be that you lost a contract, to, it's not even that you lost it for poor performance. It could just be someone in the department that you had a relationship with that was working with you is no longer there anymore. And now you don't have that relationship with that company, and you got to spend another 2 years trying to figure out who your new connect is going to be. Like, these are real things.
Honey, you singing my whole testimony right now.
Like, none of these things are promised. So that's why
the struggle
is important.
People have no idea what goes on behind the scenes. Okay.
Let's talk about it. Okay. So that's why I'm like, if you don't have a broke over I don't really know about how I feel about you truly being in business. And at this point, like, we've over glamorized entrepreneurship so much. Like, it's almost like it is, every entrepreneurship is literally like an Instagrammable moment. And sometimes I get jealous because I'm like, I did not walk across streets in New York with 3-inch 6-inch Louboutins on. Like, I'm going to my next meeting. I don't look like that when I'm going to this.
Not even
like, what have I been doing wrong for all these years?
Girl, I don't know where these people come from, but they come from a different cloth, okay? Because I'm the sister that has on her kicks, and I'm putting on my shoes when I get outside the door.
Yeah,
so
I'm
no, and I probably was on a call that stressed me out before I went in there, but I had to pull it together real quick to make it work. Yeah. It's always something.
Yes,
please.
Exactly, because there's always something going on. So that's my perspective as an employee. Like, also, don't just up and quit because you got fed up. Like, if you have a whole situation where, like, you feel like you're in complete duress and you can't, like, okay, fine, like, that's another situation. But, like, I'm gonna even go in on that, and here's what I'm gonna say. Our ancestors, our parents' parents really worked in moments of duress, okay? And they didn't have the luxury of being like, oh, this place doesn't make me feel good. You know what I mean? It was, and now I think the truth is that people are realizing, like, having a job feels good. It's like knowing that that's happening for you feels good. So there are times where, you know, maybe you don't hear what you want to hear. Maybe something doesn't go the way that you want it to go at work, but you have to really ask yourself, am I willing to walk away from all this in a moment of uncertainty because I don't always feel good about this moment? And so but that's also where your planning comes in. Yes, you can leave, but please make sure you have the savings that you need. Now, that's my perspective as an employee. My perspective as an employer, don't ever make an employer feel like she's your side chick. Okay, let's talk about this. Okay, we live in a side hustle generation. We live in a side hustle moment of everything. And your side hustle should never side hustle itself so much that your side chick is showing up as your main chick. Okay, knocking at the door. That's not how this should happen. Like, if you have something going on, like, that you do on the weekends, you have extra revenue streams, like, happy for you. But that should never present itself as an impediment to you being able to do the functional work that you were hired to do in the job that you were hired for. Because as an employer, it is not their job to underwrite your living and to underwrite the dream that you are working to save for. And there is, like, a fairness in that, right? So it's like, it's not fair that you expect that somebody's going to do that. And your, like, side projects are getting to the point where they're impacting stuff that you have going on with your main thing, you know? And so you have to ask yourself, right? Because at the end of the day, you also want to be able to call on people. Like, a lot of people that I know who are successful in business have called on people they've worked with before, right? And if you ever reach a moment where you feel like, oh, you know, this may not be going, like, maybe I need to get another situation going, you know, you don't ever want to be in a place where your last employer is like, nah, I would never hire her because she's always doing something else. He's always doing something else. And I didn't feel like she was committed. Like, commitment, a working relationship is a relationship. And commitment in a relationship is key. I don't care where the relationship is coming from. As long as you don't make your main thing feel like it's your side thing or see your side thing, then, you know, you're handling your business. But the moment that stuff starts to to move into another space, like, I think you are doing a disservice to yourself and a disservice to your employer. And you can't get mad if they get mad about it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's real talk.
This is real
That's
talk.
real. That's real. That's real. And I think some people need that reminder and that wake up call, because we feel like, oh, well, they better be glad I came to work and they should be glad I'm here. And, like in all actuality, to have a job and to be employed is a blessing. And, I'm a spiritual person. I believe in Jesus. And the Bible says, if you are faithful over a few things, I will make you ruler over many. And why would God entrust you with something to handle and lead when you're not even taking care of what he's already entrusted to you? And so, you should be able to prove and demonstrate your reliability and your trustworthiness as an employee, before you can trust yourself to be an employer, because that will come back around to you. And then you're going to be mad when you get a team member who is selling their body butter in the break room when they're supposed to be doing your work.
So let's talk about it. That's so funny. People are like, how do you, like, what advice do I give young people about being a successful entrepreneur? And I said the best entrepreneurs that I know were amazing employees. And here's my example. Absolutely. Puffy was an amazing employee. He was leaving Howard every day to go back to New York to working his butt off. Like, it was a job. He was there. He was trying to learn every single thing he could. And to your point, like, I mean, we could keep going through the list of all these people who have really excelled. And at the end of the day, the truth of the matter is, like, when you get to a point where you have a team, like, you're going to look for those same qualities, and you're going to see it because you're going to already have known what it looks like. It's a relationship.
Yeah. It's true.
Okay.
That's true. She said, not the body butter. Yes, the body butter. So I must say that Walker's Legacy has been doing the damn thing during this COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you.
Okay. I have been on the mailing list for, I'm sure, a couple of years now, but you guys have gone above and beyond to be a resource and a support during this crazy time. So my, I guess, question is just, how did you do that? How did you, I'm not using the word pivot, because if I hear it again, I'm going to scream. Because I don't know that it was necessarily a pivot. It might have just been an enhancement of what you were already doing. But how did you guys just get on it so quickly and become this amazing resource for women of color in business during this unprecedented time that many businesses have never seen before, and we pray we'll never see again? But you guys have really, and everyone who's watching and who will watch, if you are not on their mailing list, I strongly encourage you to join. They are an amazing resource. But go ahead.
So first, thank you so much. I mean, I think that's a great question. The first thing is, I think as this was happening, I was like, this is either a survive or die moment. Like, that's how I looked at it. It was like, either you gonna get in the game and play real hard on this, or you basically are out of the game. And like, because our organization is focused on empowering women about entrepreneurship and business, like what and I hate to say it, but like, what better time than this to like demonstrate what it is that, like, why we exist in the way we do, right? So like, when you go to our site, you're not getting an article about Beyonce and her outfit. Like, we've never been in that game. Like, that's not who we are as an organization. We've always been, for 10 years, pounding this conversation and this message before it became really attractive, the topic of discussion, and before money was flowing. Like, nobody wanted to talk. 10 years ago, nobody was talking about women of color like that in business seriously, like, at least for my experience. It's become a far more important conversation today, and we're happy about that. But I felt like this was a moment for us to rise to the occasion and demonstrate, like, why what we've been doing for 10 years is so important. And to leverage the power of, people who write on our team and comms, and like, we put the $1 Million Guide out there around federal government. Like, it brought all of the experiences that I personally have had, where I mentioned the government, the nonprofit and the entrepreneurial space all together, because we're seeing at this moment that those things are so intertwined that it's almost impossible not to understand how this government stuff is working. So, you know, I told my team, like, we're staying on top of the government legislation and policy that's coming out around the CARES Act. Like, we're staying on top of that. We're not going to read that from somewhere else. So when we did our when the president signed a bill, we had an article ready to go live that another $400+ billion was out there for PPP. Why? Because we had to. Like, that's what our organization is supposed to be doing for people. And I wanted to make sure in this timely moment that that's what we were able to provide. I mean, we just graduated 50 women from 5 cities across the country through our entrepreneurial program. And that was in person. And so, you know, I had a decision to make, which was either we could cancel it or we just move it straight online. And I was like, we just gonna move this thing online. Like, it's not even about, like, I couldn't take it personally. Like, it would be one thing if it was like, oh, you know, well, Walker's Legacy changed the whole format and nothing else was going on and they totally changed. But this was like, everybody was going through this. And either we were gonna offer the service during a time where you need it, or we were gonna fold and show you that we didn't have the capacity to do that. And so I personally have been very proud of the team that we have to get that out. And we just hired 5 paid interns, you know, brought them on board, and we did about $7,000 in so for example, we were gonna do some sponsorship of some stuff for some of our city directors things. And when this happened, I saw like the college students, and I was having conversations with my own family about how to get my nephew home. And I'm like,
yes, I remember that.
We're going to shift this funding from these events to go to support college students to help them get home through these micro grants that we could do. And we were able to touch almost 65 students across the country, giving them, you know, increments of $25 to $250 just so they could get home. And you read these stories, and it was like, it was incredible, some of the things that these kids were experiencing. And I will be honest, I feel like we were one of the first responders as it relates to—
I would absolutely agree. I would absolutely agree. Because when you mentioned it, it brought it back to my memory about the college student. That was like one of the first, initiatives that I saw, because it was right on the brink of when schools were still open and getting ready to close, and you guys were on it. It was amazing. It's been amazing to watch.
And I told my team, I'm like, on Sunday I had a dream, and I was like, we're gonna do this fund. And by Monday it was up. And the reason why we did it with that time sensitivity was because kids had to get home. And like,
everything can't be a board meeting and a whole rollout process and series. Sometimes you just got to make it happen. You just got to do it.
Exactly right. They had to get home.
Right.
And they were asking for stuff like gas, and my mom's incarcerated and can't come with me, and I need to fly home.
Real stories, real life
stories, you know. And I'm like, we can't wait till next month to resolve this. Like, we got to get these kids home now. We even paid for a student who couldn't go home because he had we paid for male students, but he couldn't go home because he was dealing with some domestic violence issues at his house, and he needed to get a hotel room so he could figure out where his next steps were going to be. You know what I mean? Like, you can't wait a month for that.
No, right. No brainer. That's so amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. So,
So,
go ahead. No, I was just going to say,
go.
We have now pivoted. We were about to do 5 more boot camps. We pivoted them now to all online. So I'm going to do a shameless plug. Like, check us out, because we are doing 1 2-week boot camp for women who are in Indianapolis. And I'm actually going to be doing the national 9-week accelerator program that we have, and it's online. So I encourage you, if you're interested in using this time to invest in yourself and to learn about how to take your business to the next level, like, use it wisely, because 9 weeks goes by so fast. I mean, 7 weeks is what we've been doing right now. And I don't know about you, but sometimes it feels like, man, that seems like that was so long.
Yes. Yes. Time it flies by. I'm checking the time. They're gonna cut us off in an hour, and this is so good. We could probably go on for another hour. But you talked a little bit already about kind of what's on the horizon. Is there anything else that you are kind of hoping for, looking forward to the brand doing or adding? Once we get past this Rona or anything like that, anything that's on the horizon for Walker's Legacy?
Yeah, so we wanted to do 20 chapters in 20 cities by in 2020. So it was like a 2020. Right now we're in 15, and so I'm trying to figure out whether or not we should onboard our new city directors in a digital format, just because we don't, at the end of the day, even when we're able to go back, like it's like, can you do an event with more than 10 people? Like, this has direct implications. So I still want to make sure that we achieve that goal. But I also want to be mindful of the way in which the delivery of programming will have to be made, given the possibility of those circumstances, which I've just put in my mind that it's not going to happen. And so the moment that I put that in my mind, I was like, okay, we're going to operate and move like this is not going to come back in the time frame that everybody was like, oh, we're going to be gone for 2 weeks. No, I was like, this is not coming back until 2021 for real, like with big events. So that's one.
Yeah.
Two, I mentioned the COVID impact research report. So we've talked a lot about the PPP funding and money that's come down and other things that are going on. But there's a lot of speculation about whether we are or are not getting this money, but there's no data. And so when we need that. So we need to understand how it's affected us, understanding that there are some people who are thriving during this time, right? So not everybody is going through the same experience. And we want to understand what industries that our women of color are in that are actually growing as a result of what's going on with Corona. Which ones are not? Looking at other things like their supplier and vendor preparedness for moments of this nature that we can then use to produce research reports and to produce advocacy that we are very much so needed during this time, because we're going to still be having these conversations a year from now about the impact of COVID on minority businesses. And then I mentioned the Online Accelerator. So like I said, this weekend, 40 plus moms in 2 cities will be joining us online to start their Moms to Enterprise program. We were supposed to do these programs in person. And I was like, you know what? People need something exciting right now. So we're just going to do this program online. And if they can come, but we had to do technology survey, because again, you think about it, like everybody doesn't have access to a laptop. So even with these schools being like, oh, you go home. Some of these kids don't have internet at the house. So if we're going to say we're going to deliver a program to you, I need to make sure that, particularly for our Moms to Enterprise program that's coming out of our foundation, that you actually have the capability to be able to participate in the program. And if we found out that a majority of them didn't, then we were going to do something else. Now we're excited because Rochester was able to give us Wi-Fi hotspots for every woman who was in the program, which is amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's happening. So, I mean, it's a lot. I could keep going on, but we just are looking forward to keeping it going.
Yeah, absolutely. So listen, if y'all have any questions for Natalie, y'all better type them real quick, because we only got about 10 minutes left, and we're going to try to get to some. So if you have any questions for this amazing, dope sister in business, who is the founder and president and CEO and all that good stuff of Walker's Legacy, I'm just adding all the titles. Oh, she gets all the titles, okay? Then go ahead and type them in real quick. So just kind of last question from us in terms of something a little lighthearted. What are Natalie's must-haves? What must you have, whether it's, technology or just something you do to keep you going, to keep you motivated, and what are your self-care? Like what is a Natalie must-have? Give us 3 at least. Okay,
so this is a good question. All right, so I have to have my concealer. Okay, I have to have that popping.
Okay. What brand? What do you use?
Girl, I just go to CVS. Again, I do not spend my money on all that kind of stuff. No, ma'am. I put that little thing on my hand. I'm like, is that close enough?
That is too funny.
Okay, I don't think I have any name brand makeup. Like seriously, if I go to Sephora,
so we have quite a few sisters in business in the cosmetic industry. So if y'all want Natalie to try out your concealer, you DM her and send her something.
DM me and send it to me. We might put it in our to come Walker's Legacy boxes. So I'm serious about that. Let me know. But no, so I've actually been doing a lot of meditating since I've been home. So I started this 21-day meditation. Now I'm not gonna lie, some days I miss it. but in general, I've been doing it. It's been really helpful. I've also like found workout buddies, like people, just anyone. I'm like, hey, anybody want to work out with me? And we'll get on Zoom and do something together. That's been incredibly helpful to me during this time. I think having my laptop or my phone, like I literally can't like do anything without my phone, is important to me. And I think the last thing I always need to have in my life is a travel plan. Like traveling is my thing. That's my jam. That's my everything. So God has been very good to me in that I've been able to go to 46 countries. And
wow.
Yeah. So my middle sister inspired me with that. She's been to 60 plus. And so 46, I'm coming for you, you know. But I'm always looking for a new adventure and a new way to like explore the world. And so that's always that. If there's anything I spend my money on, is that.
Right. Right. And you're entitled to do just that. So we have one question from NQ Management. What countries is your organization in or working with?
Oh, okay. So you want to help us go global? I'm all for it. DM me. Okay. I actually have put that out into the universe. So let's talk about that seriously. But no, we're in the US right now. So we're in 15 cities across the US. I could try to name them all, but I'm always going to forget something. But we're in Texas, in DC, in Georgia, in Michigan, in
Newark.
We're in Newark. We're in New York. We're in Charlotte. We're in Miami. We're in places. Yeah.
Good stuff. Lavonda says, how can we keep up with you? So you'll share your contact info in a second. And what's on your quarantine playlist?
What's on my quarantine playlist? Actually, so I've been listening. Oh God, what is her name? Oh, she dates London on the Track. What's her name?
Girl, don't ask me.
Oh my God, her album was so good. I want to call her Seven Streeter, but her name is not Seven Streeter.
She dates somebody called London on the Track.
See now, look now. Don't.
I know I sound like an old lady. Is that what you said? I'm serious. I don't know.
Summer Walker.
Oh, okay.
I've been listening to Summer Walker Essentials and her.
Okay, I'm going to check her out.
Summer Walker's album was dope, and her Essentials, like she has a very kind of jazzy and then like R&B, like it's nice. Like her situation is good. When I'm working out, I have my go-to trap list that has like a lot of Jeezy on it and stuff like that. So, you know, I got to keep the tempo high. Old Jay-Z, stuff like that.
Of course. Right. Well, tell everybody how they can stay in touch with you and Walker's Legacy. And yeah.
Yes. Okay. So if you want to stay in contact with me, you can stay in contact with me through my Instagram, which is at @nmcofield, or you can connect with me through my website, nataliecofield.com. Walker's Legacy, please feel free to join our mailing list and follow us on every platform at Walker's Legacy. That's Walker's with an S, Legacy. And check us out online at www.walkerslegacy.com.
Yes. Well, I just got to say thank you. This has been so much fun. And I can't wait till we can travel together again because, girl, we are overdue.
I know.
But sincerely, this has been so much fun and long overdue. And I look forward to us continuing to connect and to really making some amazing partnerships happen. You always have the support of me and Sistahs in Business Expo. So anything that we can do to support, we often share. We just this past week shared your resource guide with our mailing list because there's no sense in us in reinventing the wheel. Y'all already putting it out there. We're going to push it out to the folks and try to help get it out to as many people as possible. So thank you so much for the time. And we will continue to keep you and your organization in our prayers. And we look forward to connecting real soon.
Yes. Thank you for having me. And thank you guys for joining us. Bye-bye.
Yes. And this will be on our YouTube channel in a couple of days. So it'll be up and I'll send you the link.
Okay.
So for those who missed any part of it, we will send it out in our mailing list. So if you're not on our mailing list, you can join that as well. And everybody have a great night and a great weekend. Stay safe. Wash your hands. Do your senses.
That's right.
Bye.